During the time of the Southern Jim Crow era, Christianity was a very dominant religion.
There were a few other religions with only a handful of people involved. Through a man named Louis Gregory, a new religion sprouted in South Carolina.
The Baha'i Faith. Baha'is believe in the oneness of humanity, that every person is equal, and this is what supporters of the civil rights movement believe too.
However, the number of Caucasians within the Baha'i faith was very small, with African Americans dominating, so the religion aroused conflict amongst Southerners because of its beliefs.
And the fact that it was integrating blacks and whites. Until 1964, Baha'is in South Carolina were faced with persecution and segregation.
In order to break this racial and cultural barrier, they advocated for civil rights by spreading their beliefs in the oneness of humanity.
Today, because of their efforts in the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Baha'i Faith is the second most common religion in South Carolina. The Baha'i Faith started out around 1843 with a man named the Bab. The Bab told the people that the promised one would soon come. This man later came to light and was originally known as Mirza Hussein Ali Nuri. He renamed himself Baha'u'llah, meaning the glory of God. Baha'is follow the words and beliefs of Baha'u'llah, and in his book, Epistle to the Son of the Wolf, he says, "So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth." This quote goes along with one of the core values of the Baha'i Faith, and that is oneness of humanity and freedom from prejudice. Baha'u'llah's son, Abdul-Baha, says that Baha'u'llah has drawn the circle of unity. He has made a design for the uniting of all peoples. Baha'is have been working for the unification of humanity since 1843. In 1877, it became much harder to do in Southern America.
Jim Crow laws have been around since the end of Reconstruction in 1877. After the Supreme Court ruling of Plessy v. Ferguson, Jim Crow laws legalized the segregation of races nationwide. Jim Crow got its name from an insulting song that was performed for the whites that depicted African Americans as fools and uncivilized. Jim Crow laws made the integrating of blacks and whites practically forbidden, which was justified by the concept of separate but equal. However, it was not equal, and even though Jim Crow laws had been in place since the late 1870s, people did not really start fighting them until 1950. During this time, Louis Gregory took a stand against Jim Crow laws. He was an attorney for black people in Washington, D.C. During his practice, he encountered a man named Thomas H. Gibbs. Thomas H. Gibbs told Gregory about the religion.
Louis Gregory attended a lecture by Louis Getzinger in 1907. After taking the time to study the Baha'i Faith, he joined in 1909, and in 1910, he became the first person to bring the new religion to his home state of South Carolina.
Shoghi Effendi, the son of Abdul-Baha, appointed Louis Gregory as one of the hands of the causes of God. Their jobs were to spread the Baha'i faith to different places and help break the barrier between races that prevented them from carrying out their practice, and Gregory had to spread it to the south. While
Louis Gregory may not have been the first black Baha'i, he was the first black lawyer that was native to the South and a Baha'i. He spread the cause by speaking to people in churches, schools, social organizations, and private homes. The main people that listened to him were blacks and a few open-minded whites. During this time, he had met with all of Charleston's 6 black attorneys to talk about what it was he was doing in the South.
One of those attorneys' names was Alonzo Edgar Twine, a trustee of a Methodist church. He decided to tell the church about the Baha'i faith, but he made enemies in the process. In 1911, he was arrested and put in an insane asylum with very poor conditions for blacks. Louis Venter says that an influential African-American newspaper called the Washington Bee wrote a story on his arrest. It said that the cause of Twine's illness was his having forsaken the cause of his fathers and accepting the new strange kind of religion called Baha'i. Most thought that by switching to this religion, they were ruining their lives and risking their souls. This showed the resistance of converting to non-Christian from both blacks and whites. It was not easy to convert from Christianity to a new religion without social fallout.
A very present danger presented itself for anyone who strayed from the norm in a time when laws had changed, but who it was acceptable to be seen with had not.
Spreading and promoting what the Baha'i Faith stands for put many people at risk. There were also blacks who deemed the religion unholy or didn't like the fact that it also supported whites. Baha'is also received external opposition from churches, politicians, and even the Ku Klux Klan.
Baha'is continued to promote their ideals of helping to break these racial and religious barriers. Some Baha'is were very open about their beliefs, but most stayed somewhat under the radar. They continued to promote the oneness of humanity, pushing toward the Civil Rights Act that would finally break the barrier. Elizabeth Ellis, a Baha'i and former member of the Army of Light, said,
It doesn't matter whether people are Baha'i or not. Just people each other and feel that God would want us to be united, because unity is the most important thing.
Many Baha'is did their best to spread the principles and way of life.
There are many ways to teach the Baha'i faith, but the best way to teach the Baha'i faith is by being a Baha'i, by living the life as a Baha'i. It means to love humanity, to treat everyone with kindness, and to be of service.
Being a Baha'i, they live a life of goodwill, and it's their obligation to be in service to humanity and in touch with their spirituality.
In 1964, with the Civil Rights Act being enforced, Baha'is and other civil rights advocates crossed a milestone in their efforts for unification. The Civil Rights Act ended segregation in public places and banned employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin.
For Baha'is, this meant terrorist groups such as the KKK could no longer persecute them. They could no longer receive lawful mistreatment. They continued to hold fireside and study classes, while the Civil Rights Act broke a legal barrier, a spiritual and social barrier, that Baha'is continue to break.
Making laws to create justice for all is one thing, but it's much harder to change the hearts of people so that they want justice and treat people well.
In the 1970s, Baha'is formed different groups that went door to door in South Carolina, and one of those groups was called the Army of Light. Elizabeth Ellis says it formed around 1972 in February.
The Army of Light was a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week.
Members of the group always made sure to walk and stay with each other as a group to ensure their safety. Ellis said they had teams.
We had what we called a pre-team, a teaching team, and a follow-up team.
The pre-team talked with the police, the teaching team went door to door for about 2 days, and the follow-up team got the names of those who enrolled in the Baha'i faith, gave them basic obligations, and asked them to spread the faith, but their system could not always protect them.
3 white men came in, were cussing and yelling at us about why we're black and white together. Then they started trying to hit the black youth that were there.
Much more happened the following night. More people had come back, but they got them to go away. The next day, they had saw some of them in the street, and instead of being angry or ignoring them, they shot them a smile and said hi.
This is one of many things that drew people toward Baha'is, their bold love and forgiveness. However, this was a prime example of the immense backlash from Southerners. They didn't like what they saw and did something about it. The Army of Light disbanded in late August that same year, even though it was a short time period. So much was accomplished. In South Carolina, one of the biggest accomplishments of Baha'is is the Louis Gregory Institute. Baha'is from all over the region gather here to discuss important matters or just to meet and learn. It usually holds week-long retreats for Baha'is to come learn, talk, and have fun. Because of the spiritual principles Baha'is live by, people are drawn toward the Baha'i faith, and in doing so strengthen the foundation laid by the civil rights movement, and has drawn enough people toward it to make it the second most common religion in South Carolina. Baha'is today also have their own radio operated out of the Louis Gregory Institute, where they play inspirational music.
Despite the fact that Baha'is in South Carolina face persecution and segregation because of their religion and beliefs, they spread it and broke the racial and spiritual barrier that prevented them from standing for what they believed in. Today they are not afraid and stand steadfast in their cause. Although Baha'i faith has come out of obscurity and is well known around the world, Baha'is are still persecuted in different parts of the world for practicing and believing in their faith. One would hope that the sacrifices, struggles, and fears endured and conquered would usher a new generation of hope and a sense of pride as this generation of Baha'is grow from the seeds planted by past Baha'is that took root in South Carolina to form a flourishing tree that continues to grow every day. Even though prejudice, racism, and inequality still exist in the Baha'i community, they hold firm to their laws and spiritual values that change people's hearts to see the beauty in all humanity. Baha'u'llah's text, the Fire Tablet, says, "Dost thou will, or shall I will? Rather shall I weep at the fewness of thy champions, O thou who hast caused the willing of the world." Meaning, should he cry or should we? Rather, he should cry at the few that have succeeded in following the ways of Baha'i and standing against opposition. He is speaking to humanity, for they have caused the suffering of the world. Baha'is continue on every day to be a champion of Baha'u'llah and change the world, breaking the barriers established by history.